We begin with more breaking news out of the US. Donald Trump has announced his running mate, and he's also celebrating a significant court victory overnight, 2 days after surviving an assassination attempt. The former president has been officially confirmed as the Republican nominee for president. He's named Senator J.D. Vance as his running mate, the firebrand 39-year-old who's no stranger to controversy, having linked the rally shooting on the weekend with the rhetoric of the Biden campaign.
All this comes as the former president had a major win with one of the most serious cases against him for mishandling classified documents tossed out by a Florida judge. Michael is in Washington for us this morning, and Barbara Miller is at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. Barbara, let's start with you. Donald Trump has just announced his running mate, J.D. Vance. Tell us all about that.
That's right, and just recently here on the convention floor we saw J.D. Vance come on to rapturous applause, people chanting J.D., J.D., J.D. And then following Donald Trump's official confirmation as the Republican nominee for 2024, J.D. Vance was officially confirmed as his running mate. That's done by a process known as acclamation, essentially by the level of voice support in the room for him, and it was thunderous. As you say, a controversial figure. He used to be a strong anti-Trumper, a never-Trumper, and he came to fame really with his book Hillbilly Elegy. That was about the poverty he grew up in Ohio. He went to Yale Law School, he was in the Marines, and then he was elected senator for the Republican Party for the state of Ohio. So he's already packed an awful lot into 39 years, a pretty young vice presidential pick, and a loyal supporter of Donald Trump. The Biden campaign already saying too loyal. They say he's the kind of guy who will do exactly what Donald Trump wants, unlike Mike Pence, who drew a line when Donald Trump asked him not to certify the results of the 2020 election. It looked for a little bit there like we were going to actually hear from J.D. Vance on the convention floor here. It now looks as though they will wait and he will do his big speech later in the week. We did catch up very briefly with Vivek Ramaswamy, a tech entrepreneur, and as you will remember, also someone who was vying for the 2024 Republican nomination. That was before Donald Trump took it, galvanized the party, and has seen more and more them rally behind him. Even more so now with just the incredible events of the past few days here in the US. Let's hear now Vivek Ramaswamy's reaction to J.D. Vance's nomination.
Well, I'm a human being. You know, of course I would have said yes if given the position, but I am more importantly really grateful for the country. And he's a good man. We went to law school together, actually. And so in terms of a pick, I'm very happy for the country, and he's going to be a great vice president. I really mean that.
What does it mean, though, for Donald Trump's calls for unity? Because J.D. Vance is saying the Biden campaign...
So I believe national unity is within sight, and the Republican Party and Donald Trump in particular will be the one to lead us there.
Barbara, so we have Donald Trump as the official Republican Party nominee now. J.D. Vance is his running mate officially. So what now? What can we expect from the rest of this convention, particularly in the aftermath of the assassination attempt of Donald Trump?
Well, I think what I'm looking for is that issue around unity. We've seen Donald Trump talk about unity in posts he's made and comments he's made with interviews with print media in the aftermath of the assassination attempt. We heard Vivek Ramaswamy there say, national unity is within sight. And yet Donald Trump has chosen a running mate who is very likely to be divisive. It's very likely to say that Donald Trump is a victim of a weaponized justice system, for example, is a hard-line Republican. So what we're looking for here is the tone that is set by the keynote speakers, and of course, in particular, by J.D. Vance, and then at the end of the week by Donald Trump. In terms of security, we've heard it has been beefed up in the the wake of, or Donald Trump's security detail beefed up in the wake of the assassination attempt. It was always going to be very high security here. I mean, it took us several hours really to get through various levels of security to get into the convention floor here. And one more related note, we're now hearing, Emma, that RFK Jr., an independent candidate for 2024, will get Secret Service protection now. That's something he's been asking for, something, I guess, that's impacted his life. His father, Robert F. Kennedy, was assassinated when he was a political candidate. His uncle, JFK, of course, also assassinated. Now we hear in the wake of those events at the rally in Pennsylvania, RFK Jr. will also get that Secret Service protection going forward.
Yeah, we did hear Joe Biden talk about that in the aftermath of what happened at the rally. Barbara, we'll leave it there with you, but Michael, let's go to you in Washington now. We had a massive win overnight. Donald Trump's team had a huge win with this classified documents case. It was thrown out. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this was, according to legal experts, the strongest case against the former president. It pertained to allegations Donald Trump, when he left the White House, took with him sensitive classified documents and kept them at his Mar-a-Lago mansion in Florida. And the more serious charges revolved around his alleged attempts to obstruct federal authorities to get those documents back. But in a sensational ruling, Aileen Cannon, a Florida judge, it has to be pointed out, she is a Trump appointee, ruled today that the special prosecutor, the prosecutor Jack Smith, appointed to run the case, was, in her view, illegally appointed, and therefore all the 40 charges were dismissed and the case thrown out. Donald Trump, not surprisingly, very happy with that, saying it was another example of a weaponised political system, a justice system against him, and he's called for the other remaining cases to be thrown out as well. So a big win, as you say, Emma, for Donald Trump. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, his likely opponent in Joe Biden, the current US president, he's just sat down for another big TV interview, Michael.
Yes, he arranged this interview before the attempted assassination. It's very important to point this out, but importantly, he arranged it when speculation was fever pitch that he may be asked to step down, quit the presidential race, an interview lined up to show that he was pretty much up to being president. Well, he sat down with Lester Holt, the evening news anchor here with NBC. Lester Holt brought up the inflammatory political language that has preceded the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Joe Biden, addressing wealthy donors, Democratic donors, talked about making Donald Trump a bullseye, his word, in the lead up to the election in terms of focusing on Donald Trump's record, what he'd do to America if re-elected. And Lester Holt asked Joe Biden whether, in hindsight, that sort of language was a mistake.
Look, the truth of the matter was, what I guess I was talking about at the time was, there was very little focus on Trump's agenda.
Yeah, the term is bullseye.
It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye. I meant focus on him. Focus on what he's doing. Focus on his policies. Focus on the number of lies he told in the debate.
And Joe Biden went on to talk about the inflammatory language Donald Trump has used on many, many occasions. The president citing Donald Trump making fun about the recent assault on the husband of former Democratic Speaker in this building behind me, Nancy Pelosi. So we'll see more excerpts from that interview drop later on this morning, Australian time.
OK, Michael and Barbara, thank you to you both.
The CFMEU is under investigation for possible breaches of the Fair Work Act following a string of allegations of serious misconduct within the Victorian branch. Our political reporter Peter Lusted joins us now from Parliament House. Peter, good morning to you. It seems the number of investigations into the CFMEU is mounting.
Yes, Lisa, you mentioned the Fair Work Ombudsman. The Ombudsman's confirmed it's looking into investigating the CFMEU, including the Victorian branch, looking into possible breaches of the Fair Work Act. Now, this is, of course, into a series of allegations that have come out into 9 newspapers, some of which of that some of which are that the CFMEU has been infiltrated by underworld figures, including bikies, and that those figures have high-paid jobs in government-funded projects. Now, we've heard other investigations as well. We know that the Victorian Police is looking into these allegations, and also that IBAC, Victoria's Anti-Corruption Commission, is also looking into this. The Victorian Labor Party has also announced that it will pause donations from the CFMEU at this stage, and the CFMEU has also taken some action itself. Its national executive has put the Victorian branch into administration, and that effectively means that the national executive will handle those Victorian and South Australian matters. So
where's the focus shift today then?
Well, we've heard from Victoria, now we're going to hear from the federal government. That's where the push has come from. The South Australian Premier, Peter Malinauskas, has said that he will write to Labor's national executive and he will ask for the party to suspend all affiliation with the construction division of the CFMEU until all these investigations are complete. There are also some reports in the Nine newspapers today that Labor National Executive is looking into banning all donations from the CFMEU. Now, Labor Minister Pat Conroy was on News Breakfast a short time ago. He was asked about both of those matters, but he remained tight-lipped, saying it's a matter for the party.
What I'm focused on is what the federal government's focused on, is what can we do as a federal government to stamp out the sort of behaviour that's been reported. And that's why Tony Burke has asked for options from his department, and all options are on the table up to and including deregistration of the union.
So Pat Conroy there repeating Labor's comment that it will look into deregistering the construction division of the CFMEU. But of course, more interest will be today that matter of the Labor executive possibly putting a ban on donations from the CFMEU. Lisa.
Peter, thank you.
In other news, the attempted assassination of Donald Trump has sparked fears of similar violence in Australia. The federal government is on track to register a record number of threats against politicians this year. Cabinet Minister Bill Shorten says it's the most intense and abusive political environment he's seen in 17 years as an MP.
A crew member from a fishing vessel has arrived in Broome for medical treatment after being bitten by a sea snake off the coast of northern Australia. The man in his 30s received an urgent medical evacuation from Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, about 360 kilometres southwest of Darwin.
Victoria's conservation watchdog is cracking down on people illegally cutting down trees on public land. Exclusive data obtained by the ABC has revealed an estimated 9,000 trees are being cut down illegally each year for firewood in Victoria.
The New South Wales Government will today release the findings of an independent review into Sydney's road toll system. An interim report earlier this year called for a major shake-up with new pricing structures like distance-based tolling. It recommended motorists pay less per kilometre and also suggested a new state entity be established to set prices on private motorways.
The company that owns the salvage rights to the Titanic is undertaking its first expedition to the wreck in 14 years. The mission aims to provide comprehensive analysis of its condition using remotely operated vehicles. Titanic Expedition 2024 is expected to take several weeks and hopes to also discover new areas which could provide unobstructed access to the interior of the ship.